Hi, scholars. So today we're going to be talking about analyzing a TDA. So yes, you do have a TDA this module. You're only doing the pretest for it. And that's what we're going to go through together today. So you don't have to do this by yourself. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is here, this is a pair deck. So we've done these before. Most of you guys know how to use these by now, but just in case you did not, there are in the bottom corner, this is how you'll control your slides on how you go forward or back. And then also here in the bottom right, if you click on this, this is the Immersive Reader program. So if you speak a different language and you would like something to be translated for you, you can find ways to do that here. So you can do this by word, or you can do this by the entire document, and it can read this aloud for you if you click play down there. There's other options here for you if you're looking at different parts of speech, or if you just want to make sure that the text is really big for you or really small. You can change the different fonts and really just take ownership here of your learning if you know that you need something read aloud for you. So we're going to talk about analyzing your TDA. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide here. And here on this slide, what I want you to do is to think about a time when you really wanted something from someone. This could be a family member, a friend, somebody who sat next to you on the bus, whatever. How did you convince them to give you what you asked for? So think on that for a moment. Maybe you did some begging. Maybe you did some pleading, like, please, mom, please. Or maybe you gave some reasons, like reasons why you should have the thing. Maybe you did some bargaining and made offers of, hey, I will do this if you give me this. So think about times that you really wanted something and how did you get it? So here, this is just another reminder from our Elements of an Argument notes that you have already seen. So we're just going to go through these really quickly together to refresh ourselves on what the elements of the argument are. So you always start up here at the top of our circle where we have our claim. Now, something else that you're going to be creating when you do your TDA is called a thesis statement. Now, your thesis, that is synonymous with claim. That means it means the same thing. So the claim is the writer's position on an issue or a problem. You might also hear this called stance or position. It means the same thing. So this is where you need to think, what side of the issue or the problem is the author on? And when you are writing, you need to think, what side of the issue or the problem are you on? There's usually only one main claim, but sometimes a writer can sneak in multiple claims in a piece of writing, but that is a little bit more rare. Most of the time, they're just trying to convince you of one thing at a time. So now we're going to move over here to evidence. Now, a synonym for evidence is support. So authors need to find information that's going to help them prove their claim. And that's the same thing that you did in the last module, where you needed to find support and evidence to help you prove that your invention has positives and that it also has negatives. So that you can think about it that way. That's the research. So this information that they gather is referred to as evidence. So this can be facts, quotes, examples, anecdotes, and statistics. All a statistic is information or data in number form. Okay, we're going to go down here to counterargument. Now, this is the next important piece. So a synonym for this is also called a counterclaim, and this is how I'm going to refer to it whenever we are doing our writing. So this allows you to address both sides of the argument, and this is very important so that you remain neutral or as neutral as you can be. This makes you appear more credible. And if you notice that this is missing when you are reading an argument, it's a good tip off to you that maybe this argument isn't as strong as you thought it was. Because this allows you to address both sides and it acknowledges other stances and other claims. And this also allows you to show that you've done your research for your side and for the opposing side. So it doesn't look like you're trying to hide anything. It doesn't look like you're trying to keep something from your audience. You're very open, and that makes you appear trusting. So this is when you think, on the other hand, when you see things that are written like this, or consequently, when you see words like that, it's a good tip off that you're about to see a counter argument or a counterclaim. And this brings us to the rebuttal. So now that you, or the argument, So now that you or the author has addressed the other side, it's time for the rebuttal. Sometimes you might hear this called refutation or refute. So this redirects readers to your stance, to whatever your claim or position was, or whatever the original one that the author was trying to prove to you if it's not your writing. It weakens the counter argument. So this is where an author would say, oh, you might say this and this, but I've done the research to show that I'm still right because this, and this. It's where they prove the other side wrong. So this is how the argument becomes a full circle. So you can see this done here on the graphic. So at the end, you're thinking, I am still right. Now here on this slide is where we talked about evaluating the argument and how to trace it. This is when you go through the argument step by step and you want to see if you can identify each piece and each element. If something's missing, it's a good tip off that the argument is weak. And it's good to do this in your own writing so you can make sure that you're covering all your bases. So the first thing that you'll need to do is you need to find your claim. Identify the claim for it. Now, there's two types. There is your direct claim, which is more common, and then you have indirect claim. Let's start up here at the top. So the direct claim, there is a sentence or phrase that clearly reveals the author's claim or position. So you can think about this like a window. It's easy to see, easy to locate. Most of the time, it's either the very first paragraph or somewhere very close to the top of whatever argument you're reading. They want you to know their stance very early. Sometimes, though, you'll get an indirect claim. This is less common, but it requires some inferencing. It might be found in multiple sentences. It might be harder to see. So maybe it's not all in one sentence. Maybe it's spread throughout the first paragraph or maybe the second paragraph. So you have to read a little bit more to be able to figure out what the author is trying to convince you. Then you're here where you're evaluating the argument. Once you have traced it, you need to evaluate. So look and find the evidence that's being used to support this claim. Look and see what they're citing. What kind of evidence are they bringing to the table to support their argument? You need to see if you can find the counter argument, and you can locate their rebuttal as well. If something's missing, this is where things get a little shaky. But when you're looking at their evidence for either side, their claim or the counterclaim, you need to make sure that the evidence is relevant, that supports things logically. If something is irrelevant, that just means that it's unclear, it's disconnected. It has nothing to do with whatever their claim might be. If things are looking muddy like that, it means that the argument might not be credible. So consider the opposing viewpoints, also known as the counterargument or the counterclaim. You need to identify if the author is using any persuasive techniques. So you may have heard of these in the past, and you definitely will hear of them in the future, called Ethos, Logos, and Pathos. So the two that you want to keep an eye out for are Ethos and Pathos. Pathos can distort the reader's view when you start pulling on your heartstrings and making it an emotional argument. They're not putting any logic in here. They are just trying to guilt trip you or play with your emotions and make you angry or make you sad. So that already tips you off of like, oh, this might be weak because they're trying to pull on my heartstrings. Now, ethos is a little different. Ethos is a whole lot like the way politicians speak. They might say one or two sources, but it always comes off as somebody who's very charismatic. You want to trust them because they seem very confident in their speaking and in their writing. But if you look closely, you might see that maybe they're missing some counter arguments. Maybe they're missing some evidence. And they just sound so convincing because of the way they phrase it. So don't fall for it. Those are persuasive techniques and they are designed to distort your view. So if they're full of those kind of things, they shouldn't be in an argument. You already know that this is not going to be strong. So let's bring us full circle here to what you're going to be doing in this TDA. In this TDA, you're going to be reading a short article about one person's opinions and view on social media. You're going to analyze how the author develops their argument, and then you're going to write an organized response that fully answers the prompt. So that's just 3 things. So here is a quick little check-in, and you'll see this orangey yellow dot up here. This is where we are going to drag over to somewhere on the scale of Kanye to Kanye. How do we feel about writing another TDA? For me, I like to write, but I also know that I don't like to read informational text. So I'm kind of somewhere in the neutral stance. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably on a 5. Now here we're going to be able to use our drawing tools. So those are the ones located on the toolbar at the bottom. So we're going to need our highlighting tool. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and pick a color. So we're going to use our highlight tool to show what we're analyzing and what we need to include. What we have in front of us is the TDA writing prompt. This is it. So it says, the article focuses on social media. Write an essay analyzing how the author develops the argument that social media is a positive tool. Use evidence from the text to support your claim. So we need to figure out what we are analyzing. It says, write an essay analyzing how the author develops the argument that social media is a positive tool. That sounds like what we're analyzing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight this. I might make this a little bit bigger for the next one. Okay. And now we need to figure out what we need to include. So just for my purposes, you don't have to do this. I'm going to change colors. So I need to remember that I need to use evidence from the text to support my claim. So now I know what we're doing. So when we write our TDAs, we're going to be reading this article about social media, and we're going to write about how the author is developing their argument that social media is good. And we need to find evidence from the text to help us support this. So here it is. Here's the first piece of it. So I'm going to read this aloud, and we're going to look for the claim in just a moment. Social media is a powerful tool to help people connect with others. A few years ago, an ice bucket challenge went viral. Millions of people dumped ice on their heads as a result. They challenged their friends to do the same thing. This challenge also encouraged people to donate money and to support research for the disease ALS. And then we have our heading, bringing people together. When something goes viral online, the information spreads quickly from one person to another, just like a virus during an outbreak. During the Ice Bucket Challenge, the ALS Association raised $115 million in donations. In this example, sharing news about the challenge helped a good cause. There are many helpful uses for social media. Raising money and awareness is one of them. Another good use is how it brings people together during tough times like a pandemic. Many people have used social media to connect them with others during the coronavirus. Seeing other people, even through an app on a phone, can make us feel less alone. Okay, so claims tend to be in the very first paragraph or up at the tip top of whatever we're reading. So we're not going to look here. We already have a heading. We don't want to go there yet, so we know it's not down there. So let's look up here. What are they trying to prove to us? Give you some think time on this and see if you can highlight it yourself. What are they trying to prove to us here? All right. Well, I believe that the claim is right here in the very first sentence. Social media is a powerful tool to help people connect with others. So that seems like a very defining thing. And it looks like she's trying to prove this by saying, hey, with the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, people raised a bunch of money for this, and this is a good thing. And down here where it mentions that people using social media to connect with others during this pandemic has been beneficial. So it sounds like she's trying to focus on the positive things. And I believe that is her claim. Social media is a powerful tool to help people connect with others. Ooh, well, you're supposed to circle that. So disregard me. I highlighted. I can't even follow my own directions. I apologize. Okay, now here we are going to underline reasons. I'm going to make sure I follow my own directions this time. I'm going to make my tool a little smaller. Okay, so we need to highlight some reasons or underline some reasons that support the author's claim. So we already read this piece up here about things that can make us feel less alone. Let's add on here. Another great use of social media is to learn about people who are different from us. Seeing how other people live helps us to understand others better. It helps us to be kinder too. Social media lets us meet people with different families, religions, races, or ethnic backgrounds than us. This makes us better at understanding others. Learning more about people is a great perk of social media. Okay, so now we need to find some support, some good things in here. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to do the first one here, and I'll leave the rest for you because there are some good ones here. So when it talks about during the Ice Bucket Challenge, the ALS Association raised $115 million in donations. I think that is incredible, and that definitely supports her claim that social media is a powerful tool for good. So I would choose that. And there's some more in these two paragraphs as well. We'll see what you can find. Now, here we need to find the counterclaim. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch back to my highlighting tool. Some people argue that there are too many negative things on social media. They say that there's enough bad stuff that we shouldn't have social media accounts. Just like anything, there are negatives and positives to social media, but the good that comes from social media outweighs the bad. How we spend our time using it determines if social media is bad or not. If we make an effort to connect to others, learn new things, and help people when we can, social media is a great way to do that. A world without social media would be boring. We wouldn't be able to raise money for causes in fun ways like the Ice Bucket Challenge. Many more people would be lonely and sad during the pandemic, and we would have fewer opportunities to learn about and connect with people who are different than us. Social media, like everything in our world, has some drawbacks, but the positives overshadow the negatives on this subject. So we're looking for the counterclaim, and we're thinking, why are counterclaims important for arguments? Well, if you're all one sided, you look very biased. And to me, it looks almost like you're hiding something. It looks like you're afraid to address the other side. And that makes me think your argument might be weak. So there is a counterclaim here. So we're looking for the other side. If she's saying that social media is a good and powerful tool, then it makes sense that the opposite would be that social media is bad. So where can we find some evidence here that points to that? It may actually be in the very front, I believe. Some people argue that there's too many things, too many negative things on social media, and they say there's enough bad stuff that we should not have social media accounts. Ooh, some messy highlighting. I'm sorry. So that is our counterclaim. So she addresses this. She says that some people argue there's too many negative things here. Okay. And now we're going to find their rebuttal. So, where does she go and defend herself against the counterclaim, defend her own thesis? She believes that social media is good. Counterclaim says no. How does she defend herself here? And where is it? Why would this be important in an argument? I believe she does this here, right in this middle paragraph here, where she says, just like anything, there are negatives and positives to social media, but the good that comes from social media outweighs the bad. How we spend our time using it determines if social media is bad or not. And if we make an effort to connect to others, learn new things, and help people when we can, social media is a great way to do that. So I'm going to just kind of go nuts here because I believe this is her rebuttal. I think we found it, guys. Looks good to me. Okay, so now we need to focus here on our actual prompt. How did she develop her argument? And the way that we're going to think about this is what elements of the argument did she use to convince us? So, first and foremost, she gave us a strong claim. Strong claim. So, we knew from the get go that she was going to tell us about how social media is a powerful tool for good. She referenced the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge for her reasoning. She also talked about connecting with people during COVID. So, connections online during a pandemic and how those are good. And if we didn't have those, maybe more people would be sad. We know that she addressed the counter argument. So, a counter argument existed. So, she addressed one And she provided a rebuttal. And her rebuttal was convincing. So I would say that this is how she would develop her argument. She started out very strong with a claim that was easy to find, and then all of her evidence helped back up that claim, so it was effective. She talked about her counter argument, so she didn't just try to hide from it, and she provided a good rebuttal for the argument that was in the counter argument. So now it's time for us to write our rough draft. So we are going to have 3 paragraphs here. We have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, just like any other essay format. So for your hook, you're going to talk about how authors develop arguments. How do they do that? That's just a brief statement of what they can include. Why do authors do this? The next part that you're going to have in your introduction paragraph is some short, sweet background information on the author and text. Who wrote it? What do you think it was written for? What is this thing about? And then your thesis statement. So this is where you're going to tell me, what are you going to prove to me? Now for your body paragraph, you need to have your topic sentences. And all that means is just starting out your body paragraph with what you're going to address in this paragraph. So in this case, you are going to give some examples from the text that support your thesis about how she developed her argument. Then you're going to give some explanations on how they happened. So if you said, if you pulled a quote, I need you to explain to me how that quote develops the argument. So I don't want you to just drop some quotes in here. You need to tell me what they mean if you put them, okay? And then in your conclusion paragraph, you're going to rephrase your thesis. So you're going to take your thesis statement that you write for your introduction about how she uses these things that we talked about to develop her argument, and you're just going to rephrase it. You're going to take that sentence and you're going to mix it up a little bit and make it into something new. You're going to summarize your main points. So if you had some strong stuff in your body paragraph, you're going to reiterate that here. And then you're going to give your final thought, one final thought about developing an argument. Was this effective? This is a good place to tell me this. Was this argument effective? Did she do this correctly? And here is your rubric. So you're going to get 10 points for answering the prompt and staying on topic with your writing. You're going to get another 10 points if you have a clear introduction, body, and conclusion paragraph so that I can see that you're writing in an organized fashion. And then you're going to get another final 10 points for less than 5 mistakes for grammar, punctuation, capitalization, and spelling. Please use Grammarly. Or if you're typing in a Google Doc, please look for those red squiggly lines underneath words. That means they're misspelled. Do not submit anything less than you would like to have graded. So again, this is your rubric. What I want you to do on this very last slide, in your opinion, what is the most important thing from today's lesson? So what is your biggest takeaway? And I hope that this helped you out with getting your TDA started, and I can't wait to read them. Thank you for watching.